As the host of a long-running fact-based channel, there are things that surprise even me. There are a bunch of amazing facts out there you weren't aware of. Let me tell you some of them. I'm Mike with List25, and here are amazing facts you didn't know. There's a special pirate interface on Facebook? I've been using and being banned by this platform for years, and I didn't know that. What's the point of it? Who knows? Is it fun? You bet. To access it, you apparently adjust your language settings to pirate mode. Just like Captain Jack Sparrow himself, it's something of an old sea dog in that it only works with web Facebook and not the app. Yar. What be a pirate's favorite letter? You might think it be R, but a pirate can never give up his love for the sea. Google the word askew and the search engine will give you a definition. Not only that, but it'll demonstrate the crooked nature of askew by making your screen lurch to the side. Don't worry, you're not having a stroke. It's actually designed to do that. It takes 2 years to grow a pineapple. It's worth it for the delicious, juicy taste. But how amazing is it that pineapple takes its sweet time, literally, to grow? Because a pineapple is a perennial fruit living for a couple of years, the people who plant them have to factor in the increased time frame. Plus, they require a hot and sunny environment to do their thing. If you wear glasses at some point, then you're in the majority. More than half the population does. And the older you get, the more likely you are to need them. But what happens if you don't use them? Surprisingly, most people prescribed with glasses can still see without them, though their vision is limited. Glasses are important for your health. They reduce a range of symptoms linked to bad vision, like tired eyes, agitation, and headaches. If you've experienced these kinds of things, it's probably time to get your eyes checked. Here's a physical phenomenon that sounds a little like magic. Take a ball and spin it as fast as you can. Think of a pitcher throwing a baseball with as much rotation as possible. Now imagine we can see the air flowing around the baseball. As it spins, the ball is actually pulling air with it on either side. While one side is moving toward the direction the ball is heading, the other is moving in the opposite direction. Believe it or not, these tiny differences create lower and higher pressure, making the ball gravitate ever so slightly toward the lower pressure. What does this mean? The ball drifts in the direction that it's spinning. This is actually how pitchers do curveballs, and footballers can bend it like Beckham. It's called the Magnus effect. Who knew so much physics was involved in sports? Me? I did? Everyone should? If you don't know physics are involved in sports, I don't know what to tell you. Dingoes have a troubled history in Australia, going back far longer than a baby being stolen in the 80s. They were likely first brought by nomadic humans around 4,000 years ago and quickly got to work driving smaller animals to extinction. Then, when the British arrived, dingoes had a new source of food: sheep. To fight against dingo attacks, the longest fence in the world was built. It stretches from Queensland on the eastern shore all the way to South Australia. Measured from point to point, it spans over 5,600 kilometers, which is about the distance from New York to London. This place sounds like some kind of riddle. In the Arctic, there's an island. Well, this island happens to be located on a lake, and so far so good. But then here's where things get complicated. That lake itself is on an island. And zoom out one more time, and you can see that all of those things, the island, the lake, and the bigger island, are inside an even larger lake. Imagine trying to explain those to your Uber Eats driver. Every year, around 1,000 people flock to Sun Dong Cave in central Vietnam right next to the Laos border. But the number is strictly capped at 1,000. Why? The cave is home to a delicate ecosystem that includes vast lakes, a thriving jungle, as well as animals like birds, snakes, and monkeys. Measuring almost 9 kilometers, the cave holds the title of the biggest in the world. It's so big that Sun Dong Cave has its own weather system different from the surface that ranges from cool winds and rain seeping through the roof to high levels of sunlight when the cave isn't foggy. Niagara Falls can't freeze over. Maybe if we went into a new ice age, then those famous falls would grind to a halt. The way things are currently, however, there's no way that ice is going to stop business at Niagara. There's too much of the wet stuff, and it's always on the move. One thing that could happen, of course, is that the water could run dry. Experts have suggested Niagara Falls might become Niagara Stalls in a couple thousand years. What's the oldest country on the planet? That's believed by some to be Egypt, land of the pyramids, the pharaohs, and more than a few mummies. The earliest knowledge we have of ancient Egypt comes from 3100 BCE. That stands for Before Common Era, though you may know it as BC, as in before Christ. Not everyone agrees that Egypt is the oldest, pointing to old republics such as San Marino in Italy and various other locations. If you hear the sound of a tiger roaring and think it's something else, then you could be mistaken. Can you believe that the sound of a tiger's roar can travel for an incredible 2 miles? That's comparable to a thunderclap or massive explosion. All that comes from one tiger? Let me put it this way. You gonna stick around to find out? We think of the effect of electricity, but not so much its physical properties. For example, how much does electricity weigh? It makes sense to assume it's fairly light as a form of energy. However, a lot of it must be considerably heavy, right? Nope. Amazingly, the total amount of electricity behind the whole darn internet is approximately 35 grams. That's the same as an apricot. Would you like to know what it's like to experience the G-force of an astronaut? Then go to NASA. If you want to feel double that amount, then head to Johannesburg's Gold Reef City in South Africa. The Tower of Terror roller coaster there has been dubbed the most powerful on the planet. Feeling like you've been punched in the stomach by the almighty isn't everyone's idea of a good time, but thrill seekers love it. We live in a largely paperless society now, with printers and ink cartridges requiring a small mortgage to afford. Should someone decide to print out everything that's on the internet, it would be super costly, but maybe worthwhile. It's been worked out that you need 136 billion sheets of A4 paper, and if all that was piled high, it would go beyond our atmosphere. It's unlikely anyone would do this, but who knows? It never hurts to have a backup. Real quick, if you are enjoying this video and want to help me out, please give this a like and comment for the algorithm because it will really help the channel out a lot. Thank you so much. On an island filled with some of the most luxurious buildings in the world, it takes a lot for a structure to stand out in Hong Kong. Back in 1986, architects opted for a bold design when building residential towers known as the Repulse Bay Complex. Don't be put off by the name. This complex is named for the beach it looks over and is actually one of the most expensive areas of real estate on Earth. A key part of the $38 million design was to leave a massive square hole in the middle of it, measuring 80 by 50 feet. Soon after construction, local folklore began to develop about the gap, with many claiming it was made for a family of dragons who lived nearby. Unfortunately, the reality of the gap's origin is a little more boring. Government regulations ask for gaps in structures for ventilation and to stop obstructing views. I think I prefer the dragon version. During World War I, while Europe was tearing itself apart, many armed forces relied on heavily trained dogs to hunt out the battlefield for wounded soldiers and bring them life-saving supplies. Tens of thousands of these dogs, known affectionately as mercy dogs, were taught to develop the same instincts as soldiers. They disregarded the dead bodies and hid if the enemy opened fire. For lucky survivors who were seriously injured or stranded, these dogs were a lifeline. They carried basic medical equipment and could lead soldiers back to safety. It just proves that dogs truly are man's best friend. Not just in good times, but in hard times too. In times of warfare, even the smallest of actions can snowball into victory. And the smallest actions sometimes come from the smallest people. That's why a 6-year-old French boy named Marcel Pant is a little-known hero of World War II. His father operated a command center for the French resistance army against the Germans. Marcel's job was to take messages by hand to different factors of the resistance to coordinate their forces. Because he looked like an innocent child, he was able to slip past German security easily. Marcel helped liberate the city of Limoges, but tragically died days earlier. He is celebrated as the youngest resistance fighter of France. Students in school are known to draw doodles on their textbooks. A mustache here and there, or small love letters. But in Saudi Arabia back in 2017, textbooks came with a funny image already printed on them. Next to the esteemed former Saudi King Faisal signing the UN Charter was a small, wise-looking old man with green skin and pointy ears. Yoda. Yes, really, the Jedi Master from Star Wars had somehow made it all the way to the printing press for Saudi's national textbooks. The education minister was forced to apologize for the mistake, and the original artist assured the public he meant no offense. Now that's why you always employ a fact checker. There aren't many female sea captains known by name from the 19th century. This was a job almost completely dominated by men. But one exception was a woman named Mary Ann Brown Patton. You see, Mary picked up navigational skills from a 1.5-year sea voyage with her husband. This perfectly prepared her for an 1856 voyage when her husband became desperately sick. Mary stepped up to the plate and commanded the cargo ship on a return voyage to San Francisco, which took almost 3 months. Oh yeah, and did I mention that she was only 19 and pregnant and was taking care of her husband all at the same time? But what did the newspaper choose to report? That Mary did the plain duty of a wife. Yeah, I think it was a little more than that, guys. There are very few paintings more iconic than the Scream. Even by its name, you probably know the one I'm talking about. This one. It was created by Norwegian painter Edvard Munch, and unlike most painters, he preferred to use cardboard rather than paper. If you look closely, or zoom in on the painting, you can actually see the cardboard peeking through. 4 different versions of the painting all use cardboard, and one of them sold for $120 million at auction. It's hard to imagine something worth this amount of money is made on the same material as a cereal box. In a limestone cave in Kanchanaburi province, southwest Thailand, lives this planet's smallest mammal. This bat has a pig-like appearance and is referred to as Kitty's hog-nosed bat. However, its size gives it another name, the bumblebee bat. This tiny creature measures up to 1.29 inches long and up to 5.7 inches wide with its wings spread. I'm not sure whether its small proportions would make it better or worse for bat phobics. When we think of the human eye, we think of a lot of veins. Sometimes you see them when you go to the opticians and they shine a very bright light in your eye. However, not everything in your incredibly veiny eye has veins. The transparent covering of the cornea features no blood vessels. This makes it highly unusual, not just because of where it's located, but also due to it being one of 2 blood vessel-free areas across the entire body. The other one is your cartilage. Groundbreaking sitcom The Jeffersons ran from 1975 to 1985 and was known for its diverse cast. One of its stars, Marla Gibbs, became a household name as housekeeper character Florence, though she was also a familiar face on American Airlines. You'd think having landed a role on a TV show, Gibbs would quit her life as a flight attendant, but no, the practically minded actress decided to work both gigs, finally leaving the airline 2 years later. Some TV themes are legendary, such as Thank You for Being a Friend, composed by Andrew Gold, which viewers of a certain age know from The Golden Girls. If the original plan panned out, you would have heard Bette Midler over the credits. Her track, Friends, was wanted for the show initially, but had to be replaced with a cheaper option. And weirdly, this is long before the sitcom Friends was created. Pivot! Pivot! A hybrid animal doesn't sound like the tastiest option. That said, people are willing to buy beefalo meat. Yes, as you might expect, this is 2 animals in one, specifically a cow and a bison. They've been held on the market since the early 70s. It wasn't long ago that Americans had to pay to use public restrooms, and anyone traveling overseas soon learns that it's still common practice in many parts of the world. So, what changed here in the US? It all dates back to the 70s when 4 high school students started a campaign to end paid toilets in America. Pressuring Congress members and building public support, the teens finally found success in 1976 when a toilet bill became law. It dictated that for each paid toilet there had to be an equally accessible free one. It was the first step to flushing away the idea of paid toilets once and for all. During the Cold War, tensions between the US and USSR were at an all-time high. When Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev met for negotiations at the 1985 Geneva Summit, officially the main issue covered was to cool down the nuclear arms race. During the talks, though, Reagan and Gorbachev secretly spoke about other issues. Off the record. One was what the 2 superpowers would do if aliens invaded the planet. According to aides who witnessed the conversation, both leaders agreed to unite their forces together against a different species. Yeah, it's nice to see all it takes for peace is an extraterrestrial threat. But you want to know what else is awesome? Liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing? Seriously, it really helps the channel out. Also, don't forget to check out our socials. Getting drunk leads to a lot of negative effects. Dizziness, sickness, and an altered mood. It might make you feel more confident, but rarely does it lead to anything good happening in life. Well, that is, unless you're a zebrafish. Researchers liquored up zebrafish before putting them back in with a group of sober fish. That's where things got interesting. The sober fish followed around the drunken one, even mimicking its wobbly swimming patterns. One hypothesis is that they believe the drunken behavior could make it look like a leader. Getting promoted for being drunk? I don't think that's ever happened to a human. What pet did you always dream of having as a child? For most, it was a dog or a cat. But increasingly the answer to that question is something like a turtle. And I get it, they're cute, easy to care for, and there's no chance of them running away. At least not quickly. However, one massive downside is that turtles are the ideal vessel to carry dangerous bacteria known as salmonella. That's the kind we usually associate with food poisoning. Even worse, turtles can easily transmit the bacteria to humans with just a touch. In fact, reptiles and amphibians are so often covered in salmonella that they're not recommended around children, older people, or anyone prone to infection. Salmonella can be deadly, so better stick with the traditional pets. The more I learn about mushrooms, the more mysterious they seem. Some can glow in the dark, some have mind control powers, and they're more similar to humans than they are to plants. The number of uses for them is beginning to flourish too, and not just as food. Mycelium, basically the roots of a fungus, has proven to be a great alternative to styrofoam. It's combined with wood chips or straw to form a material that's perfectly suited for packaging. The bonus is that it's cheap to produce and completely sustainable. Hippos are cute looking, but surprisingly dangerous. In fact, their jaws can reportedly open incredibly wide. How wide, you might be asking? Technically, you could drive a sports car into its mouth. A hippo has been known to open its jaw up to 150 degrees, basically 3 times wider than we can. Indigenous peoples of the Arctic are famous for having many words meaning snow, but did you know the same applies way over in Scotland? They have no less than 421 snowy definitions. These include spitters, as in little frozen pieces carried on the wind, and the incredible sounding flinkdrinken, which refers to a light show. Like many, I believe Chicago was called the Windy City because of, well, wind. And while I'm sure it can blow a gale over there, it turns out that story's not accurate. In the 19th century, the press seems to have been as vicious then as it is now. The wind factor comes from not the heavens, but the mouths of Chicagoans, as reported in the papers. They were described as windbags. Twitter, X, the Muskiverse. Whatever you like to call the famous social media platform, you know it's still being used by people around the world. So how many tweets do you think are sent by human beings every second? The answer has been worked out at an amazing 9,310. For centuries, nobody knew exactly where a certain strange substance in the sea was coming from. It was solid, had a waxy and glossy texture, and was extremely valuable. Some civilizations used it as a medicine, and others for perfumes. All that was known was that it drifted ashore in Asia, Africa, and as far as the Bahamas, sometimes pieces weighing over 1,400 pounds. These days, just a pound of the stuff can fetch around $23,000. The name of this mysterious substance? Ambergris. Eventually, people figured out where ambergris, known as floating gold, was really coming from, and it's not pretty. It forms when animal parts like beaks get stuck inside a sperm whale's intestines. Over time, it forms a waxy substance. How does it get out of the whale? Well, either one end or the other. That's right. Ambergris, this luxury product, is whale poop or vomit, and I'm not sure which one's better. The good thing about the English dictionary is that it's open and democratic. If a word is used enough, it'll find its way in there. But it's kind of a bad thing too. Some words might be better off staying as verbal slang. For example, do we really want the word twerk in the dictionary? Well, believe it or not, it wasn't Miley Cyrus and Nicki Minaj who invented the term. It first appeared in the English language way back in 1820 to mean a similar thing, moving with a twitching, twisting, or jerking motion. Its current meaning, thrusting movements of the bottom and hips in a low squatting stance, first appeared in the Oxford Dictionary in 1993, and it doesn't look like it's leaving anytime soon. It turns out sharks, one of the most dangerous animals in the ocean, are not so different from humans, especially their eyes. They have a lens, cornea, retina, pupil, and iris, just like us. They're so similar that a shark cornea, the part that covers our pupils, has been successfully transplanted onto a human eye before. Imagine waking up from a surgery and learning that you have a shark to thank. Queen Elizabeth II was the longest reigning monarch in British history, reigning for over 70 years. And before her passing in 2022, she celebrated 2 birthdays every year. So, how come she got to celebrate twice? Actually, it was all in the public interest. In order to maximize the chances of good on the public holiday that's given, it was celebrated on the second Saturday of June. Her real birthday, April 21st, was a private occasion. I wonder if she got double the number of gifts, too. Every time you fold a piece of paper in half, this is already folded in thirds, so I have to mess with that, the width of it doubles. But how many times would you have to fold it to reach the moon? Considering that the moon is around 340,000 miles away, most people guess a pretty high number, but the answer is actually much lower. Because the growth is exponential, you would reach the moon in just 42 folds. In fact, After 20 folds, the paper would already be over 6 miles tall. That's higher than Mount Everest. I'm almost there. Just get up. That's 3 folds. I'm almost at the moon. 4, just 11 more times and I'm at the moon, baby. I don't think it's happening. Queen Elizabeth is probably the last person you would think of to fix your car, but she could have. When she was still a princess, Elizabeth II learned the skills of car repairs, including engines and tires. It was a part of a course to join the Auxiliary Territorial Service during World War II. Her work earned her the nickname Princess Auto Mechanic. It's not that ingenious. Despite being an essential ingredient to life, there have been many mysteries about exactly how water made its way to Earth. The leading theory was that asteroids or comets colliding with Earth transported ice with them. Plus, a huge amount of water has been found in an interstellar cloud over 1,300 light years away. This is the missing link researchers have been looking for, confirming that water comes from gases and dust in between stars that would be billions of years older than our own solar system. Every time you have a glass of water, you're drinking something more ancient than the sun. Do as I say, not as I do. During Prohibition, the manufacture, sale, or transport of alcohol was against the law. Technically, it was still legal to consume it, especially in the privacy of your own home. So when the powerful leaders of the country wanted a drink, they needed a reliable source. That's where George L. Cassidy came in, also known as the Man in the Green Hat. He supplied congressmen with whiskey, bourbon, gin, and other spirits daily. When he went public with his story, he revealed that 4 out of 5 senators and congressmen were drinking during Prohibition. His story helped influence an election and have Prohibition repealed. The liver produces bile to enable fat digestion, detoxifies harmful substances, and acts as an energy store for the body. It's also remarkably resilient. After being damaged, it can grow back at an astonishing rate. Even after a partial transplant, researchers found that the liver is restored to its normal size after around 3 months. That doesn't mean you can completely neglect your liver, but it is good to know. Nothing we know of is perfectly straight. Once you zoom in closely, even the lines and blocks on your computer screen have imperfections. Shooting a laser beam doesn't get around the problem either. It produces a stream of light that's slightly bent from the gravitational field on Earth. And you know what? If that's tough to compute, just wait until you learn about the magnetic poles shifting. Did you know that France is officially the most visited country on Earth? It reportedly receives between 90 and 100 million visitors per year. How come? Iconic landmarks such as the Eiffel Tower play their part. Also, you got Disneyland over there, and for those who prefer roller coasters to romantic walks along the Seine. 1%. That's the percentage of the planet's water supply that we can actually use. Oh, hold on, isn't the majority of our planet water? It sure is, but a lot of that is ocean. Plus, it's more than a little polluted with plastic and such. If you want the fresh kind, you'll be amazed to hear this represents just 2.5% or so of our total supply. Cut away half of that too, because these freshwater locations aren't exactly easy to get a hold of. The great Robert De Niro is famously a method actor, living the lives of characters he plays. When preparing for his iconic role of Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver, De Niro not only got behind the wheel of a cab, he earned his very own taxi license. Adding to the craziness is the fact he was doing this on a break from shooting an epic period drama called 1900. I bet you've put a lemon slice in your drink before. Maybe you've done the same thing, but with a lime instead. Well, believe it or not, that's a different kind of thing. What do I mean by that? They're both packed with zesty goodness. However, your lemon will float and your lime will sink. You see, lime is dense compared to its little yellow friend. Raindrops can come from as high as 25,000 feet in the air, and on their journey, hurtling down to Earth, they pick up a considerate amount of speed. Larger raindrops can travel up to 25 miles an hour. That's just a fraction slower than the top speed of Usain Bolt during the 100-meter sprint. So we are very lucky raindrops are only made out of water. First of all, what does bleating mean? It's the crying sound that sheep or goats make. Just like humans, these noises are often a way of communicating with each other. They could be hungry, impatient, or telling the herd there's a predator nearby. And although they may sound the same to an untrained ear, not all bleats sound the same. There are subtle differences each group picks up from each other, which differ to other groups. I guess it's kind of like a goat accent. Add all the colors of the rainbow, and what color do you get? White. That's the real color of the sun. A similar method is used to produce white artificially, like in a TV. But only 3 base colors are needed: red, blue, and green. That's because inside our eyes are 3 cone cells, which correspond to those 3 colors. So when the right balance of red, blue, and green is mixed together on television, we see the color white. Before England was invaded by Vikings and Normans, it was a group called the Anglo-Saxons who ruled. About a quarter of the English language traces back to this time, with words like amaze, crack, empty, hoarse, rough, and thousands more. Unfortunately, one that didn't survive was Weed Month. That's what the month of August used to be. And before you ask, no, it wasn't a marijuana reference. It referred to the time of the year when plants, trees, and flowers would grow best. I talked about how dingoes can be a menace earlier, but we do share a lot with them. You wouldn't guess it, but our wrists are very similar. They can rotate them, just like us. This is one of the major differences between dingoes and domesticated dogs we have today. In fact, there have even been reports of them using the skill to open latches and doors to escape from captivity. Bet you never learned that in school. The Cuban leader Fidel Castro had more than his fair share of enemies. Top of the list were leaders from the US, who did everything in their power to try and bring him down. The plots ranged from exploding cigars and LSD poisoning to a heart attack gun. Despite all the efforts, none of them worked, and Castro lived to the ripe old age of 90, dying in 2016 from natural causes. The body produces a lot of saliva. It's an automatic response to food because it helps to lubricate our mouths, and it's filled with enzymes and antibacterial compounds to help break food down. Over a lifetime, we produce an average of around 20,000 liters of saliva. That's enough to fill a normal-sized backyard swimming pool. It's called the Mpemba effect, named after a Tanzanian scientist who did the first systematic study on the subject. While still a student, Mpemba discovered that hot water freezes faster than cold water. After following up with his professors, it led to decades of research. Scientists believe that there could be 2 reasons for the observation. Either polar hydrogen bonds are destroyed when water heats up, meaning it takes less energy to cool down, or hot water evaporates quicker than cold, reducing the volume and the time to freeze it. Either way, it's something that not many young physics students would have predicted. You know that stinging red-eye feeling after a swim? You can thank all the people who decided the pool was their personal bathroom. When urine mixes with chlorine, it creates chloramine, a compound that's way harsher on your eyes than chlorine alone. And that strong pool smell everyone associates with cleanliness? Yeah, that's chloramine too. The more it smells like chemicals, the more likely it's full of, well, you get the idea. If you've been watching us for a while, you'll know that Disney parks have their fair share of weird things going on. What you might not know, however, is that they're a prime spot for, well, illegally scattering human ashes. Their favorite spot? The Haunted Mansion. It happens so often that employees have a special code for it, HEPA cleanup, named after the high-powered vacuum they use to, well, take care of the situation. So if you ever notice a suspiciously dusty corner at Disney, just know it's probably not leftover construction dust. And also, if you're thinking about doing this, don't. Your loved one will end up in a vacuum somewhere, so don't do that. If you've ever seen the movie The Thing or The X-Files, you'll know that digging something out of the ice never ends well. And honestly, with air pollution, microplastics, and food that might kill us, do we really need scientists poking around in frozen time capsules? Well, in 2022, they did just that. They revived a 48,500-year-old virus that was still infectious. It's called Pandoravirus yedoma, and while this one only infects amoebas, the fact that there are others out there that can survive this long is enough to make me go, nope. It's one thing to dig up history. It's another to dig up something that might not be done with us yet. Everyone knows Finding Nemo isn't exactly accurate. Fish can't talk, sea turtles aren't surfer dudes, and pelicans don't rescue fish from dentists' offices. But it's probably for the best that Pixar took some creative liberties, because if the movie reflected real clownfish biology, things would have gotten weird. In reality, when a female clownfish dies, the most dominant male changes sex and becomes female. So, after Nemo's mom was eaten, Marlin wouldn't have stayed his devoted dad, he would have become his new mom. And since clownfish only reproduce with the largest male in the group, well, Nemo would have eventually mated with Marlin. Yeah, so maybe it's best Pixar skipped the marine biology lesson. George Aldrich has one of the weirdest jobs at NASA. He smells things before they go to space. And no, this is not a joke. By 2018, he had spent 44 years as a NASA chemical specialist and even earned the Silver Snoopy Sniffer Award for his impressive nose. Bad smells in space can be a genuine issue, so NASA has an odor panel, people who sniff test objects bound for space. Anything rated above 2.5 stays on Earth. Aldrich, who has tested over 800 objects, has been nicknamed NASA Nose, or Nostradamus, but his personal favorite is Nasalnaut. So, you like Mountain Dew, do you? Well, here's something to think about. In 2009, a man sued Pepsi after allegedly finding a dead mouse in a can of his Mountain Dew. But instead of denying it outright, Pepsi's defense took a different approach. They claimed that if a mouse had been in the can, it wouldn't have been recognizable, because Mountain Dew is so acidic, it would have dissolved the mouse into a jelly-like substance within 30 days. So it makes you wonder what it's doing to your insides, huh? Moving away from beverages that can dissolve mice, I'm happy to announce that chocolate, of the dark variety of course, is actually good for you. There have been so many studies, but let me just highlight a few for you. In 2017, researchers found it improves blood flow, lowers blood pressure, and reduces heart disease risk. In 2022, it was linked to better gut bacteria diversity. In 2023, researchers confirmed it can boost focus, memory, and learning. And to top it all off, a 2024 study found that eating dark chocolate 5 times a week lowers the risk of type 2 diabetes by 20%. So don't feel guilty. Eat up, for your health. The universe is big. Unfathomably big. If you were to count every single grain of sand on the planet, scientists estimate you would get to a number around 7.5 sextillion. That's a number with 17 zeros. But that's nothing compared to the estimated number of stars, which is 70 septillion, or 23 zeros. The magnetosphere is a protective layer shielding the Earth from the sun, but these forces are in a constant state of flux, meaning that the North and South poles are incrementally moving. On average, every 300,000 years the poles completely flip. The last time this happened was 780,000 years ago. When it happens, our planet could be more exposed to solar radiation and a number of different magnetic poles could pop up in different locations. There's a reason why plain food is always bland, and not just because it's a pun on plain food. Nor is it just the cheap manufactured ingredients. 35,000 feet in the air, and in a pressurized cabin, there are a few things that reduce the sensitivity of our taste buds. The lower humidity, air pressure, and even the constant background noise all have an influence on how we experience taste. One study from a German physics department emulated the same conditions of an airplane and found that subjects lost their sensitivity to salty and sweet tastes. Meanwhile, the sense of sour, spicy, or bitter remained strong. Digital currencies have totally eclipsed cold hard cash. That's not a surprise. I'm sure you could have guessed that fact anyway. What is amazing is just how insignificant coins and notes seem to be these days. Only around 10% of the world currency is physical. The other 90-ish% is very much online, though I should highlight that digital currency isn't exactly the same as virtual currency like Bitcoin. A world run on Bitcoin would surely be a crazy place indeed. Tears say a lot about a person. And before you reply, yeah, that they're crying, let me stop you. You see, tears can come out of a specific eye first. This actually reveals the reason they've opened those floodgates. Tears from the right eye are reportedly happy tears. If they come from the left, the person is in pain. The world doesn't need to be hungry. Amazingly, the issue lies with distribution, not supply. If we manage distribution better, then everyone would have food to eat. So, what's getting in the way? Well, have you seen our planet lately? When wars break out, that seriously disrupts food distribution and access to supplies. Organizations such as the World Food Program also point out things like weather, food wastage, and even social identity as contributing factors. How many states of matter are there? 3, right? Solid, liquid, and gas. Well, not quite. There's as many as 15, and scientists recognize at least 8. Plasma, fermionic condensates, and quark-gluon plasma are but a few. But what must be one of the absolute weirdest is Bose-Einstein condensate, or BEC, which forms when a gas is cooled to just above absolute zero. At that point, things get really strange. A BEC can flow without resistance and even climb the walls of a container. I hate to break it to you, but every time you smell something, it's because tiny molecules from that thing are actually making their way into your nose. That amazing scent of fresh baked cookies? Yep, tiny molecules from those cookies are literally entering your nose. Sadly, every smell works the same way. That means when you catch a whiff of something awful like puke, poop, or rotting meat, little bits of that are in your nose too. Oh god, now I feel really terrible for the nasal nut. Let me do one more NASA fact. This one is guaranteed to put a smile on your face. During the early space race, NASA wanted a squeaky clean and family-friendly image, but there was just one problem. Most of the astronauts were rough ex-military types who swore like sailors. To keep things PG, the agency sanitized footage and kept the worst offenders under wraps. But one astronaut was particularly bad. So bad that NASA turned to hypnosis and had a psychiatrist instill the urge to hum whenever he felt like swearing. Now, while NASA has never confirmed his identity, only one astronaut hummed his way across the moon, and that was Commander Pete Conrad. You'd think being stuck in one spot would leave plants defenseless against hungry insects, but some of them have a secret weapon. When they sense they're being eaten, they release a chemical into the air that attracts the attacking insect's natural enemy. The predator swoops in and takes care of the problem, and the plant lives to photosynthesize another day. It's basically the plant kingdom's version of getting your older sibling to take care of the school bully. And it's kind of genius. Okay, I'm not really sure how this next fact will change your life, but I'm sure it will. Plus, I just can't carry this knowledge alone by myself, so here it goes. An elephant produces enough poop per day to outweigh most adults. Big animal, big poops. It makes sense. But the sheer volume? That's another story. On average, an elephant drops 220 pounds or 100 kilograms of waste every single day. Just picture someone who weighs less than that. Then imagine that much poop every day. Yep, now you have to live with this knowledge too. Falling in love starts with a spark, a tiny flicker of attraction that, if the conditions are just right, turns into a full-blown blaze. And there's a name for this overwhelming rush: limerence. It's that flood of neurotransmitters that keeps us up late, talking endlessly and thinking about someone 24/7. But not just anyone can trigger it. According to researcher John Gottman in Principia Amoris, the person has to feel, smell, and be just right to set off the chemical reaction. What exactly makes someone the perfect match for our brain chemistry? Well, that part's still a mystery. But one thing's for sure, when it happens, you know. There are around 7 million feral pigs in the world. 2.6 million of these are concentrated not just in the US, but in Texas alone. These animals wreak havoc on the economy by destroying crops, landscaping, and other resources. Nationwide, they're responsible for an estimated $1.5 billion of damage. That's a lot of money, but it's nothing compared to the value of raining diamonds on Saturn. Apple's iPhone is one of the most revolutionary products of the 21st century. But did you know that it wasn't the first product to have the iPhone name? Back in 2007, when Apple showcased the iPhone at the Macworld Conference and Expo, Cisco took the company to court. Cisco had already been using the name iPhone for a cordless network phone. Steve Jobs even called up Cisco executives to try and persuade them to let go of the name. Eventually, after a lawsuit, they came to an agreement for both companies to use the name. And I'm talking about not the rapper, not the thong song guy. Different Cisco. Going outside the Earth's atmosphere leaves the body exposed to the extreme conditions of space. One of the biggest is radiation. Astronauts are hit by radiation, which is equal to having 6,000 chest x-rays. This can have long-term consequences, like cancer, problems with the central nervous system, and other effects. To protect the astronauts, special sunscreen and a radiation shield have been developed. SPF 1 billion, probably. Actually, don't know the SPF level, if it even has one. Probably has one, they probably don't call it that. Sweet oranges might be a staple of breakfast around the world today, but go back a couple of thousand years, and they didn't even exist. That's right, oranges never appeared in the wild, anywhere. They are the product of a hybrid between a mandarin and a pomelo. Every variety that we have today is a descendant of this ancient prototype. It came from China, and there are references to sweet oranges as early as the 4th century, more than 1700 years ago. When entomologist Rainier Guillermo Ferreira took a closer look at the wings of a Zenithoptera dragonfly under an electron microscope, he found something no one had ever seen before. Tiny branching tracheal tubes delivering oxygen inside the wing itself. This means dragonfly wings aren't just passive structures, they are biologically active in ways we never imagined. It could even explain their striking blue color, especially since, weirdly enough, there's no actual blue pigment in their wings at all. Never mind the chicken and the egg, the debate we should be having was about the sponge and the jelly. For years, scientists have argued over which animal came first. Sponges, the simple filter-feeding creatures stuck to the ocean floor, or comb jellies, the glowing marine invertebrates with primitive nervous systems. The answer is important because it will reveal what all animals, including humans, evolved from. And I'm happy to tell you that a study published in 2017 settled it. Sponges were the first to branch off the evolutionary tree about 750 million years ago. Maybe that's why some people are so squishy. The domain name system gives websites names instead of a collection of numbers, acting like a kind of phone book. At the heart of this system is a group of 7 key holders, each of them scattered around the world, who meet 4 times a year. These keys include a metal key to a safe that houses a smart card to activate a special machine to create new master passwords. The domain name system is accessed when all 7 keys are put together. Like a weird infinity gauntlet. Internetfinity gauntlet. You're welcome. A 2017 study tested the theory on rats, and the results were hard to ignore. After drinking alcohol for 10 days, the rats were given access to cocaine, and they kept trying to get more, an average of 58 times, even when scientists delivered little electrical shocks. The control group, which only had water, tried only 18 times. The compulsive behavior mirrors what's been observed in about 25% of human cocaine users. Researchers believe alcohol breaks down proteins in the brain's reward center, but exactly how this allows certain drugs to act as gateways is still a mystery. We've all heard that flying is one of the most safest ways to travel. I mean, yes, statistically you're far more likely to be in a car accident. In fact, the odds of a mid-air decompression event are estimated to be about 1 in 600,000 flights. But it does happen, and it's terrifying. If the cabin suddenly loses pressure, the air at high altitude is so thin that your brain only gets 30 to 45 seconds of oxygen before you start to black out. You'll feel euphoric, then dizzy, then unable to make decisions, before losing consciousness completely. You should also know that high altitude air is freezing. I'm talking negative 60 degrees Celsius or negative 76 degrees Fahrenheit. And decompression comes with howling winds and flying debris. If it ever happens to you, the best thing you can do is to get your mask on fast, which is one of the reasons they tell you as an adult to put your mask on first, then worry about your kids. If you shuffle a deck properly, then you create a unique combination of cards. And by unique, I mean a combination that no one has ever had before, or will probably ever have again. With a deck of just 52 cards, the total number of combinations is 8 followed by 67 zeros. That's more combinations than there are atoms on Earth. You only need a pair of eyes to believe that the ocean is scarier than, say, a freshwater lake. But 90% of drownings happen in freshwater, and it all boils down to a little bit of chemistry. Freshwater is closer in composition to human blood, so when it's inhaled, it quickly enters the bloodstream through osmosis. This dilutes the blood so much that cells burst, leading to organ failure in just 2 to 3 minutes. Salt water, however, thickens the blood rather than diluting it. The process takes 8 to 10 minutes, giving you a better chance of survival. So while the ocean may look scarier, freshwater is actually deadlier. If that 3rd or 4th cup of coffee has you seeing strange things in the corner of your eye, don't worry, you're not hallucinating. Well, actually, you may be. But blame the caffeine, not your brain. 315 milligrams of caffeine, about 3 cups of coffee, 6 cups of tea, or 9 colas can triple your chances of experiencing auditory or visual hallucinations. Just one strong specialty coffee can be enough to push you over the threshold, and the cycle is brutal. Caffeine spikes cortisol, making you more anxious, which leads to more coffee and even more overstimulation. Before you know it, you're wondering if that strange flicker you just saw is real, or just a caffeine-fueled trick of the brain. Try this. Go to a park, put on a blindfold, and try walking in a straight line. When you take it off, I can guarantee you'll find yourself way off course, or even walking in circles. No matter how careful you are, without a visual target, most people can't do it. And the weirdest part? scientists have no idea why. Researchers have tracked people with GPS, tested it in darkness, and studied walking patterns. But every theory, brain dominance, leg length differences, or balance issues, has been so far ruled out. When you picture a hippopotamus, you probably imagine a river or a lake. While this is certainly their habitat, hippos can't actually swim. They can't breathe underwater or even float. Believe it or not, hippos are much quicker on land. Despite weighing up to 10,000 pounds, they can travel at speeds of up to 22 miles an hour. Coming up in the top 5, how a man survived both atomic bombs, how many millions of years sharks go back, and which living animal is the closest relative to the T-Rex. On Earth, naturally formed diamonds are created deep underground and transported higher by volcanic magma. On planets like Jupiter and Saturn, they come from the sky. The storms of Saturn provide the perfect environment. Methane gas is transformed into carbon soot by lightning storms, which then turns into graphite from the high pressures. As the pressure ratchets up, this graphite finally becomes hardened diamonds. One researcher estimated that 2.2 million pounds of diamond rains from Saturn's atmosphere every year. Overcoming temptation is hard, whether it's skipping dessert on a diet or resisting the urge to binge watch Netflix instead of working. But research has shown that a simple wording change can make a huge difference. Instead of saying, "I can't eat unhealthy food," try saying, "I don't eat unhealthy food." That tiny shift will leave you feeling empowered rather than restricted, and will reinforce your sense of control. It's a Jedi mind trick that really works, albeit on yourself. Neurodivergence can present in different ways, and conditions like ADHD, autism, OCD, and Tourette's are often misdiagnosed or overlooked. One lesser-known trait sometimes linked to neurodivergence, especially autism, is toe walking, where a person walks on their toes or the balls of their feet instead of using their heels. Now, it's important to mention that a lot of kids toe walk and eventually grow out of it, but if it doesn't go away, you should probably look into it. Sometimes small behaviors tell a bigger story. Tsutomu Yamaguchi was either one of the luckiest or unluckiest men in history. He was a Japanese naval engineer working for Mitsubishi in 1945. While visiting Hiroshima for a business trip, the US dropped the first atomic bomb on the city. He was under 2 miles from where the bomb landed, but survived. The following day, he made his way back to Nagasaki, where he lived. In a horrifying stroke of bad luck, it was the city that the US decided to bomb next, just 3 days later. Once again, Yamaguchi was within 2 miles of the detonation zone. However, this time he was better sheltered inside Mitsubishi's office building. He went on to be a translator, writer, poet, and an advocate against nuclear weapons. One part of a parent's most important job is to guide their children towards kindness. And once they start school, teachers have to reinforce the idea. A recent study found that when kids ages 9 to 11 were encouraged by their teachers to do 3 acts of kindness a week for a month, they didn't just feel happier, they also became more popular with their classmates and found it easier to make friends. In short, if you want to set up a child for success, teaching them kindness is definitely the best place to start. We all know that garlic can make your breath smell. In fact, I think it's actually seen as the best way to land yourself in a social disaster. People avoid it before dates or job interviews like it's the plague. But garlic could actually be the key to smelling better. A new study has discovered that women rated men's body odor as more attractive and less intense after they ate garlic. So if you love garlic, I figure I just gave you the best news of the year. You might not have thought of it playing with Lego bricks as a kid, but these plastic blocks have some serious strength. The type of plastic used in Lego is called acrylonitrile butadiene styrene, which is actually stronger than concrete. One group of researchers found that one Lego brick can withstand the weight of 375,000 other bricks before it fails. The reason why this material isn't used to construct buildings is because it would actually be much more expensive. Also, my little fun fact, it's not called Legos. The proper term is Lego or Lego bricks. So you can't say, "I played with Legos." I mean, you can, but you'd be wrong. What's your favorite Lego set? Let me know in the comments below. I have my, check my Instagram, probably a couple years ago, but I almost said Millennium Falcon. Oh, that's what I want. No, I have the Milano, the UCS Milano from Guardians of the Galaxy. It's one of my favorite ones I've done. The earliest evidence of trees is found between 345 to 360 million years ago. Sharks, on the other hand, are even older. They've been traced back to at least 450 million years ago. Sharks have survived 5 different mass extinction events. Around 150 million years ago, the supercontinent Pangaea fractured, creating the Atlantic Ocean. That means that sharks are older than some of the water they swim in. And speaking of old water, I'm thirsty. Should we do like ASMR with Mike? Hashtag Mike SMR? Mike SMR? Let me know in the comments if you want. List 25 ASMR videos. Oh boy. I won't bore you with the details of the great garbage patches in our oceans. If you've been watching our videos of the last few years, you've probably seen 1 or 2 on that mess. But the fact remains, plastics keep piling up. Cleanup efforts can't keep up, and our oceans are suffering. In 2018, the Ocean Cleanup launched System 001, a 600-meter floating barrier that was meant to trap plastic. It didn't work. Instead of collecting debris, it drifted right along with it. Then in 2021, System 002 finally got it right and pulled over 250,000 kilograms of plastic from the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. System 03, 3 times bigger, was launched in 2023 and immediately started clearing a football field's worth of ocean every 5 seconds. If it continues to clean the oceans at the current rate, it might just be the invention that helps to save our oceans. During the Victorian era of the 19th century, photography was becoming popular among people of all classes. As the costs came down, people were able to have their pictures taken for a variety of occasions. The biggest of those was often death. It became normal to have relatives photographed after they died. It was seen as a last chance to preserve their image, especially of children. The body would be positioned upright, dressed, and sometimes eyes would even be painted onto the photograph afterward. In 2003, when scientists found a fossil of a chicken dating back 68 million years, DNA analysis revealed a distant ancestor. It was found that chickens are the closest living relative of the Tyrannosaurus rex, or T-Rex, a dinosaur that roamed the Earth 65 million years ago, measuring almost 40 feet tall and with teeth the size of bananas. Chickens are nowhere near as dangerous, thank goodness, but they share sharp claws and walk on 2 legs, just as their ancestors did. Do you know where New Holland is? Or rather, do you know where it used to be? The country we know as Australia used to be called New Holland. This name was given in the 17th century and lasted right through to the early 19th century. Since the people who landed in Oz in 1606 were Dutch, they naturally used one of their own place names. Australia didn't become widely used until around 1800. It was first written down by Matthew Flinders, an explorer from England. So, what are some of your favorite random facts? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this list, then you have to watch my other video about 25 random facts to fuel your curiosity. I'll show you how a computer determined the most boring day in history and explain the crazy story of Roald Dahl, the author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, becoming a British spy. Click here to find out what else I found. What are you waiting for? Click it. Learn things. Come on, that's literally why you watch this channel. Learn more stuff. Please. I don't know how many times I can do this. Click it.